Eleanor, a woman in her 40s, bursts into the dimly lit police station, her face etched with terror and desperation. Her wild eyes dart around as she stumbles to the front desk. With a voice trembling and urgent, she declares that she killed her husband, David, the previous night, and that the man at her home now is an imposter. She insists on being arrested and offers to lead the police to where she buried the body.
The officer on duty, initially taken aback by Eleanor's frantic demeanor, is skeptical. He contacts Detective Langford, who arrives to interview Eleanor. Langford listens carefully as Eleanor recounts her story, her narrative filled with frantic detail and emotional distress. Despite Eleanor's convincing performance, Langford's skepticism is heightened by the lack of any disturbance reports or missing persons that match Eleanor's husband's description. Langford decides to investigate further, intrigued by Eleanor's insistence and the eerie undertones of her confession. The scene closes with Langford preparing to visit Eleanor's home, the unsettling feeling of uncertainty hanging in the air. Act 2, the investigation. All right, team, let's head inside and see what we've got here.
What's going on? Why are you all here? Eleanor, what is this about?
Mr. David, we're here to investigate some claims your wife has made. Can you tell me where you've been this evening?
I've been here at home. I don't understand what's happening. Eleanor, why are you doing this?
All right, team, let's search the house for any signs of disturbance or foul play.
As the officers move through the house, they find David unharmed and confused, but otherwise normal. His bewilderment at the police presence and Eleanor's accusations seems genuine.
There's nothing here, no signs of a crime. David's presence seems to deflate Eleanor's story. Eleanor, you need to calm down. Show me what you have.
Desperate and agitated, Eleanor presents a collection of photographs, personal notes and documents she claims prove that David is not who he appears to be.
All right, let's see these. What exactly am I looking at here?
The items she shows include discrepancies in David's personal history and physical details, which she insists are evidence of his true identity being hidden.
These discrepancies, they are interesting, but they don't necessarily prove anything. Eleanor, this is not enough. Okay, let's review this evidence again. Some of these inconsistencies are hard to ignore.
Detective, I swear I don't know what she's talking about. This is all so confusing.
Your identification and records match the details Eleanor provided, yet there's something off here.
Langford reviews Eleanor's evidence, which contains inconsistencies but also elements that can't easily be dismissed.
David, you seem genuinely distressed, but Eleanor's evidence, it's peculiar.
I just want to understand what's happening. Why is she doing this?
The detective starts to suspect that Eleanor may be suffering from a severe psychological issue, yet the peculiar evidence and David's odd behavior keep Langford intrigued and off balance.
I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this than meets the eye.
Detective Langford, troubled by Eleanor's alarming confession and the inconsistencies in her evidence, decides to detain David for further questioning. David, appearing confused but compliant, agrees to go to the station voluntarily. Langford is increasingly unsettled by the discrepancies in Eleanor's story and David's odd behavior, so he arranges for David to be held in a secure cell for additional investigation. As David is processed at the station, Langford takes note of his unnervingly calm demeanor. When asked about his recent activities and personal details, David's responses are unusually precise, but lack the emotional depth Langford expects from someone in his situation. There's a subtle rigidity in David's movements and speech that Langford finds unsettling but can't quite place. Eleanor's persistence. At Eleanor's home, officers find no immediate evidence of a crime. The house is in order and David's presence appears normal. Eleanor's insistence that the man is an imposter is met with skepticism. Her frantic behavior and contradictory statements make it difficult for the officers to take her seriously. Langford decides to interview Eleanor at the station to get a clearer picture. During the interview, Eleanor presents a collection of photographs, personal notes and documents, insisting they prove the man at her house is not her husband. Langford reviews the evidence, which includes some odd discrepancies, but nothing definitive. Eleanor's distress is palpable, and her behavior suggests she's genuinely convinced of the imposter's identity. David's odd behavior and subtle reveal. At the station, David continues to exhibit an unnervingly calm and detached demeanor. Langford becomes increasingly frustrated as David's answers seem rehearsed and lacking in personal nuance. During a routine medical check for all detainees, the attending officer makes a small, peculiar observation. David's physiological responses are slightly off compared to those of a typical human, such as his unusually consistent body temperature, and a strange metallic glint in his eyes when light catches them at certain angles. Langford's suspicion grows when David's reflection in a nearby glass seems to flicker momentarily, a fleeting glimpse of something unnatural beneath the surface. Although the reflection is gone almost as quickly as it appeared, Langford is left with a lingering sense of unease. Langford decides to keep David in the holding cell for further investigation. He instructs the officers to monitor David closely for any unusual behavior. As David is escorted to the cell, he maintains his detached calmness, but Langford notices an odd, almost imperceptible shift in David's eyes, a cold, calculating look that hints at something more sinister. The small reveal. During David's time in the cell, Langford reviews security footage from the holding area. In one brief moment, the footage captures David's image warping slightly, revealing a glimpse of an alien form before snapping back to his human disguise. Langford's eyes widen as he realizes that what he's seeing is not a glitch but a brief unmasking of David's true nature. Shaken, Langford confronts David, who remains eerily composed despite the growing tension. The alien's disguise is flawless, but Langford can now see the unsettling truth behind the facade. Back at the station, the door creaks open and Police Chief Harris strides into the room. He's a tall, imposing man in his late 50s with steely eyes and a presence that commands respect. His crisp uniform and deliberate steps exude authority, though there's an unsettling calmness about him tonight. His demeanor is casual, almost too casual for the gravity of the situation. He pauses, hands behind his back, observing Langford as he interrogates Eleanor. The tension in the room thickens. Without acknowledging Eleanor, the chief shifts his gaze to Langford. Langford suddenly notices Chief Harris reaching into his coat pocket and pulling out a small, unfamiliar device. Langford's instincts flare.
Chief, what are you doing with that device?
Without hesitation, Harris activates the concealed device. A high-pitched frequency fills the room, almost inaudible yet deeply disorienting. Within seconds, Langford's vision blurs as his body seizes up. This is the only way to maintain balance. Eleanor barely manages a gasp before both she and Langford collapse to the floor, unconscious, their bodies limp and vulnerable. With Langford and Eleanor incapacitated, the chief removes the restraints from the alien. The final phase of the operation is complete. We're ready to move forward. This was an effective preliminary phase.
Their fears have been a crucial component. This is merely the beginning.
The chief and the alien exit the room, their departure shrouded in secrecy. The room falls into an eerie silence, leaving Langford and Eleanor in a state of unconsciousness. Langford and Eleanor eventually regain consciousness, their heads pounding, their bodies heavy. The room is eerily quiet, the air thick with something they can't name. Langford tries to sit up, but a wave of nausea washes over him. Eleanor pulls herself to a sitting position, trembling, her eyes wide with fear.
What just happened?
The memory of the chief's betrayal lingers like a bad dream, but it wasn't a dream. It was real. The restraints, the alien, the chief, it all happened. They exchange a glance, both realizing the terrifying truth. They've been left alive, but for what purpose? Langford stumbles to the window, pulling back the heavy curtain. The night is too still, the sky too dark. No stars, just an endless, oppressive void. His eyes dart around, searching for something familiar, but everything feels wrong. Too quiet, too empty. Eleanor whispers, her voice barely audible. They're not gone, are they? Langford doesn't answer because he knows. Somewhere out there, something far sinister is in the works beyond anything we could ever imagine. His mind reels, flashing back to the alien's words, the cold, detached tone of a being that sees humans as nothing more than subjects.